I'm ready to smash and burn.
Jason and I were really good buddies from college, and
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And I'm excited today because we are seeing some familiar faces that we haven't gotten to see in BattleBots in a while. So excited to have Tom and Sarah and Tim, Monsoon, on the show.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. It has been some time. So, due to unfortunate events and things like that, but excited to have you on, excited to talk about some of the past matches from Monsoon and, things to come. We'll get on to all sorts of stuff today.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's great.
Definitely.
Great to finally be back doing stuff, I suppose. Yeah. Good to have Tim back as well. It means a lot. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it means a lot for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Monsoon is definitely a robot that was a favorite for me. Back when you guys were in BattleBots, I loved the design. Really powerful weapon. Just excited about it. And one of the more exciting matches for me that honestly was a highlight of that tournament was the win against Sawblaze in the Sweet 16. You were a number 12 seed. Sawblaze was a number 5 seed. Tom, your parents made the trip to see you, which I'm sure was a really cool thing to do that with them there.
Yeah, Sam's dad came as well. Yeah.
He did, yeah. Just winding back a bit on that, just getting to that season was such a crazy journey because we went with essentially what was originally going to be Tauron 3, which was my Robot Wars robot, and we took that, spent quite a lot of time doing it up, a lot of money and effort putting into it.
A lot of getting rid of red paint and putting on blue
a lot
paint.
of getting rid of not at all. And just getting there was the most incredible, ridiculous thing to ever happen to us. And just it was especially winning that first fight just meant the world. And because I personally had such a bad run on Robot Wars, getting finally getting a televised win just meant the absolute world to me. And doing it there with the people closest to me, and it was incredible. Yeah. And then we somehow, fast forwarding, got to fight Sawblaze in the final 16, which was amazing. It was incredible. What did you reckon, Tim, when we first saw that matchup out of interest?
Oh, Sawblaze.
Yeah.
So I sized Jameson up quite quickly. So I got you can always tell when someone's sort of come from sort of charmed background, I guess. That's what I call it. The old MIT kind of like, oh, my school's better than yours kind of attitude. It was a little bit of that going on, I could tell. And they got the big bucks, they got the funding, and we were there with like 500 quid in our pocket. That was,
that was it.
One robot that was sort of patched back together several times, because this was after Waiachi, wasn't it? So we'd spent 2 days solid, grinding, welding, and rewiring. We were dead on our feet at this point.
Yeah, back then the meta of robots hadn't quite evolved as much, and you could turn up to BattleBots with one robot and one set of armor, which is what we did. And after each fight, we'd take it away, patch it up. We were there quite late at night most times, and we were limping through that tournament, but we were doing it. We were fixing it ourselves.
And we didn't go there with anything to prove, but we wanted to put a good show in, because we did feel like we were like maybe when they've got the last few to choose and they're like, oh, maybe give these guys a go because they haven't done anything before. And for me, it was quite we'd had several ups and downs while we were there, tired, and I was going through like a lot of personal stuff as well in the background, the last stages of the divorce, so it was quite stressed. But like we really came together for this one, and we all filled our roles really well, I thought. So like Sarah was really calm, she kept the team focused. Tom was thinking about what he was going to do, and then Sam was just mostly eating cheese balls, I'll be honest, I think.
Well,
and then there was me just like trying to out-hype this team that clearly came with like an F1 setup, and we were there with like a demolition derby setup. So we all fulfilled our roles perfectly for this fight, I think. And it was good.
Yeah, I mean, Sawblaze, obviously, like back then, Jameson has done a lot with that robot since then. But I mean, still like very, very big threat. And he came out in that match super aggressive, like he tends to do. And, in the process of that, his tire ended up by the blade of Monsoon. And that's something that you don't want to do. I mean, I just loved it though, because even though you got that tire, that he kind of came back for a while, and then you got the other tire and ended up taking the whole wheel off. It was just very like back and forth, and like that's, for me, it was such a great match.
Yeah, I think it's genuinely probably my favorite Monsoon fight that we've done, just because it was such a cracking back and forth. Like at one point he was taking it, then we were taking it, then he was, and it was just back and forth for 3 minutes. Lots of destruction, lots of control, mostly from him.
Good communication as well throughout the team. Like we were all shouting and calling, and it was good.
Yeah, it's the little things like Tim was controlling the weapon that year, and just knowing that we were about to be rammed into a wall and letting go of the weapon at just the right time and turning it back on immediately can save the motor.
And then Tom, what was it? Reverse and turn every time.
I
kept shouting at like
reverse and turn.
Yeah, like so we know that Jameson's thing to kind of get his hammer saw down is, if as soon as he gets you against a wall, the side against the side, then that's it. So we kept shouting at Tom, reverse and turn, so that he was essentially, if he couldn't go forward, just reverse and turn so that he would stay in the middle of the box.
I mean, like, let's be honest, like motors wise, equipment wise, they completely outgunned us. Like when it came to like quality of tooling and everything. So it was really and we were probably about 30 to 40% weld at this point as well. So
both us and the robot, I would say.
Yeah,
I was at least 60% swarf, I would say.
And 10% cheese ball.
And 10% cheese ball. Sam was more a higher percentage of cheese ball.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's a great fight. And Sawblaze is a very, very nasty robot. For that one in particular, we had these Hardox plates that we put on top of the robot. How did we get in weight with that? I can't remember. Did we only have them on the top?
No, we put them on the bottom as well.
Wishful thinking, I think.
Didn't we use the thinner front armor?
Did we have thinner front armor that year?
Yeah, we went for thinner front armor.
Okay. Yeah. So in that case, as I think it was, we had thinner front armor and some Hardox lids.
We definitely didn't do the China trick.
Oh, putting your foot on the Tim. Terrible. Did they ever find out about that?
No. Well, one guy like saw what I was doing, and I sort of gave him the look of like, "This isn't going to end well for you if you tell." So,
for context, Tim at King of Bots, when they were weighing,
what a big fun.
Oh no, not at all. Hypothetically, not
Clash Bots.
Hypothetically,
Clash Bots.
Clash Bots.
Yeah.
What was it, Tim? You were weighing in.
So me and Jason, right? The tournament of BattleBots is what, like 8 fights to win the title, 7 fights.
Yeah.
In Clash Bots, it was 16 fights to win the title. We went out like 5 times. It was ridiculous. Nearly lost my job over it. And me and Jason had run out of spare parts. It was like fight 14, and this was to get into the semis. And we had to weld up like a Hardox collar for the axe because we had no alley left, and it was just to get us through this fight. And I was like, well, we're at 114.8, and we're putting maybe 3 kilos of Hardox on the arms. So I was like, we're not going to make weight. So when we went to load it on, they had like the adjudicator there, and because let's be honest, Clashbots wasn't well organized. Yeah, there've been better piss ups in breweries, better organized. So like it wasn't great. So half addled with cold KFC and weird looking beers and drinks. Me and Jason were like, we just got whatever we can to get in. So I snuck round the back of the scales and put my toe just under the edge of the scales. And as they were weighing it, I just lifted my toe just enough so that it was reading 115. And they were like, oh, how did you done that? And I'm like, oh, we just moved some stuff around. And then one of the staff was looking at me, one of the camera guys, and he saw my foot, and I was just like, no. This isn't going to end well for you if you say sort of things. And he sort of just scuttled off and realised that I was not in. It was like 2 a.m. It was ridiculous. So I was like, no, we're not failing this.
Yeah, I remember how mad it was. I remember getting your messages very early in the morning about how it was going, and
the fact that you never wanted to see KFC again.
We would get called at like 2 or 3 a.m. to go in to film something. It was ridiculous.
Madness.
But yeah, we were legit in wait with Monsoon, weren't we? We're like,
legit. Oh no, we were.
Because it's very controlled about bots. So like, you're not allowed to be touching anything. You have to show everything you're going to put on it. You have to have any armor like disclaimed beforehand. So
when you're lining up for a fight, the second you weigh in, you are not allowed to touch the robot. If you touch it, you can even like to tighten up a bolt, they'll make you weigh it again. So they're very tight on it. Yeah. So. Wow. We were talking about saw blades, weren't we?
Yeah, we were talking about saw blades.
Always.
If I had $1 for every like time that the conversation redirected somewhere else, it just does.
It was a really good fight. So we all, like I said, we'd had ups and downs, and we came together really well. But we sort of absolutely fine with Jameson now. We like him, have a good laugh with him. But he was quite salty afterwards because obviously we were the new guys and maybe a little bit obnoxious.
Was it? Are you thinking about the last few seconds of that fight, Tim, by any chance?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So when you're in the knockout stages of the tournament, right, you don't want to let it go to the judges, right? You can't. And if it is, then you have to do all you can. So we had him on the ropes, and I think we knew that. I think we knew that we'd got him at that point, but there was a few seconds left on the clock. And you know how sometimes Tombstone will go in and just kind of graze you, just to like a little scratch. So I was going for that, just like a little scratch.
Yeah.
Scratch, we kind of goosed off an entire motor, which wasn't intentional.
No.
And half the dragon head, but it was cool TV, and that's what matters. So.
There was a lot of swearing, and I'm pretty sure I said, "Let's effing have him." When you went in for the kill, there's quite a few beeps from me, especially.
You shouting "finish him" is the best as well.
Yeah.
I completely lost my voice for that. And of course, my parents, they flew out for that. And that was totally like unplanned. My mum had said the day before, after we knew that we were going to face Axe Backwards, she said, I had told her, okay, we're on the edge of being in the final 16. If we win this, we're probably in. And she said, okay, if you win, call me. I don't care what time of day or night it is, call me. So we won, and I called her at 3 a.m. UK time. And within the hour, her and my dad had booked flights and were flying the next day.
It was the same with Sam's dad too. So Sam's dad, So David's like the closest thing I've got to a dad as well. So he calls me son, I call him dad. Same sort of relationship. So called him, me and Sam, and he popped out too as well. And he's now on the team. So
David's coming out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you'd agree, Tim, having him there, and for me having my parents there, for them to see that as our first BattleBots fight was incredible.
Oh yeah, they were very proud of you, Tom. You could tell.
I was proud of you, Sam, as well.
Someone's got to be.
This is so wholesome.
Yeah. It was lovely, like just to see. So like we'd had that thrill of the first fight, and then we'd had we had an awful day. That Waiachi day was just the worst day. Like we argued in the morning, the fight was tough, and then after it, we were just like, what are we doing? Like, let's just get this sorted. So we all just pitched in and back to being a team again. But it was just
before that, I was like, so we had to leave the robot in the box, and I was like, we're going to be here late. So I was like, I'm telling everyone, we're all going to get food. We're all having something
we went
to
off for lunch.
And we went out for like a late lunch because I was like, we all need to just sit.
Didn't someone come up to you, Tom?
But like, so when we got back, it was like a couple of hours later, and I think production thought like that we just disappeared and rage quit or something. We hadn't been there for 2 hours. We just left this robot that was smoking and on fire.
This carcass of a robot.
It took like 2 hours to get it out of the arena, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was smoking for a very long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had
I think we went off and found a Greek place. We found like a really nice Greek place, and then David was really excited about the Greek place, so he told everyone else about it. And then he was like, "Was that the second time?" I know the first time we went off somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a few years ago now.
Was that the milkshake?
We went to get the milkshakes. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. I bought Sean one because it was like his birthday and he didn't tell anyone.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah. It's been so long. That's the thing.
It's kind of obvious. Some things happen one time, some things happen the other, but there's a few things that are a bit blurry for me.
Yeah, 4 years ago.
It is California after all.
Oh, Tim, we won't talk about those first couple of nights.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Oh my god.
Well, moving forward though, I don't want to, there's not that much to talk about because, sadly it wasn't that long of a match, but I do want to talk about the quarterfinals match versus Minotaur. I mean, because it was the quarterfinals. I mean, like for coming to BattleBots and probably feeling like, we'll get to do this, and not necessarily like thinking that you would get to the quarterfinals and then doing that, and getting to go up against such like an amazing robot like Minotaur during a year when they were just like on it. What was that match like for you, and like what was your strategy versus the way things that actually happened?
Yeah, well, I think so. Just getting to that point, I think we definitely felt like, I think Tim said it best, but I think I at least felt very much like we were underdogs. People didn't really expect loads from us at this point. It had been built in my parents' garage on a shoestring budget, and I think by the time we got to Minotaur, I think I was finally starting to like believe a little bit in the robot, I guess, and in the team as well. And I think this was the point where I was thinking, oh my god, if we can get past Minotaur, we could be in the final four. What is this? What is going on? Am I really here? So
and we had Ray Billings, didn't we, speak to us just before?
And we did. After then, Ray came over and like had a chat and said that he said that we were one of his favorite destructive robots there that year.
He said we were doing it right.
Yeah, he did. He did
it right.
Yeah. So getting to Minotaur was incredible. And I think to prepare for this fight, because we knew at this point it's go big or go home, we welded the armor onto the pods. Do you remember that, Tim?
Because at this point, all of the
welded it on because we had no armor left.
All of the mounts and the chassis was so like twisted and warped that like none of the
that year
holes to the bolts lined up.
We only had one chassis. We didn't have two.
It was how are people allowed to swear on this? It was fucked. It was completely fucked.
It was, it was well said. It was the thing is, it was so thin that you could bend it back with the press and with a sledgehammer, as we did quite a lot.
Yeah.
That was just so that both wheels would touch the floor and that we could drive in a straight line.
Just being able to drive in the arena was
Yeah. So we'd welded on the armor.
It was a familiar feeling for me though. So like with Concussion, first time, we got way further than we thought we did. We got top 6 at Robo Wars and we'd never done anything before. And that was the first time I met Tom, obviously, in that first fight. But a lot harsher Robo Wars. When you're done, you're done. It's like you don't get a couple of fights, you're just out.
Yeah.
So it's a bit crazy. But for me, I was like, well, when we went out with Concussion, we were limping and everything was welded together and nothing was quite working. And now we're sort of in a similar state. I was like, I'm not going to be too surprised if we die here, because Minotaur was like, it was like the apex of what we had designed in the UK for Concussion, and I was kind of prepared for it, and I was more than happy at how we placed. We'd equaled any other UK team since the first ever series in 1990s, I believe.
That's true.
I think we've equaled any other UK team in placement.
Yep.
Since
and got the
Kilohertz did it when they went over to America the first series and they won. Apart from that, no UK teams come as high.
I think certainly in modern BattleBots,
Yeah, in modern BattleBots, we're the equal highest ranking. And I was just like, this is crazy. But we'd run out of spares, really. We were, like Tom said, welding it together to to get in, and fighting something that's just a brick with a very, very, very together team. I didn't want to say it for the fight because I'll always hype up and get hyped, but get the crowd and team going. But in my head, I was like,
We did get one of the drum pulleys.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah,
we were close.
Yeah. The year after, they came back with covered pulleys.
Yeah,
he gave it to me. Yeah. Like, because you know, what's his name, Daniel likes to hype up. He's known as their hype guy. And then I was obviously running into the crowd, making sure my trousers were still on while holding the flag. So, like, you know, that's my kind of hype level. And I was trying to psych him out, and he got to the point where he wouldn't look at me because I was going too big at him. But in my heart, I was just like, yeah, but we might not live up to that.
I remember them watching us testing in the box before we went in. Do you remember when we
timing it, weren't they?
They were watching us, and he was very much just like looking to his team. I could tell you'd done something. No, great fight. And yeah, I think, as Tim said, I think at this point we knew that we were a little bit in trouble.
And you are right though, Tom. Your attitude, like, I always say it to people, especially newcomers and Beatles and things. It's like, there's no point going into a fight thinking you're going to lose because you've already mentally lost. You never know how it's going to go. And if you're thinking you're going to lose, if there's an opportunity for you to win, you're probably going to miss it. So you need to go in, not with arrogance, but with confidence. So it's always part of it. Hence the hype thing. It's not just silly. It kind of gets you in the frame of mind. We're going to amount of times when we first went there, Tom, because you weren't used to, not to be rude, but you weren't used to winning. And like, so I had to be like, Tom, we can do this. Come on. He's like, oh yeah, Tom, we're going to win. Right, we're here to win. We're going to win. What's the point in like being in a tournament if you're not going to try and win? You know. And then you get hyped up. Sarah would calm you down, and then you'd be focused.
Yeah, that's good. I think honestly, that's kind of what we were almost missing last year as well. Not to push things forward, but yeah, last year for both of us. I guess we'll get to it, but last year was rough for both of us, and not having, you know, our big hype man there was you definitely missed, I would say.
Likewise.
I mean, let's talk about 2019. One of the matches that I want to talk about involves both of you, the tag team match. But before I get into that one, I want to talk about the Valkyrie match. Even though you lost that one, again, like, I think that there are losses that, like, sometimes you have a loss that is impressive just for other reasons for what you were able to do during that match. And I mean, you made it 3 minutes in that match to a judge's decision, despite not having a weapon. And actually the weapon was kind of almost off completely. There were just so many sparks in that match. I mean, like, it was great, I thought. And to hold up to, like, Valkyrie is known as having one of, like, the baddest weapons out there. So for me, that was just a great match to watch.
So for a bit more context on Monsoon 2019, so when we built the robot, it was a case of, last year it worked quite well, so we don't want to change that much. So one thing we did is we went to brushless drive to get some weight back, and we were planning on keeping the E-Tech, and the whole frame was much thicker. It was buffed up. It should have been much better, but when we weighed it the first time, it came in at 118 kilos, which what's that in pounds? Like,
I don't know. I'll Google.
It's about 5 to 10 more.
Yeah, 5 to 10 more pounds. So we. This was a couple of weeks before shipping, so 260 pounds, fair play. Yeah. So we decided that we needed to lose some weight. So one of the things we did is we replaced our pivot bolts that hold the weapon in place with two little titanium shafts with circuit. This was a Rory Mangles idea, not a great one. And we did other things. We cut bits out the chassis. We swapped from the E-Tech to a LEM. Which is a few kilos lighter,
but that meant we had a slower spin up time.
Yeah, the LEM was a slower spin up time, and it also meant that in order to fight a horizontal, we wanted to have some kind of plow or something at the front. The only way we could do that is to use an even lighter brushless motor, And at this point, bear in mind, we had never done brushless weapons, never ever.
Yeah. So quite a dark art back then.
Back then, definitely. So we were using this Revolt brushless motor that wasn't really on the right voltage. It wasn't set up right. So the spin up time was about 10 seconds, but it did give us the weight to use a small wedgelet at the front that, in theory, can survive maybe 1 or 2 hits and just flick a horizontal into our blade.
It also gave us weight so that, you know, the plates that we mentioned that we're using the saw blades fight on the top and bottom, we actually use those on the bottom of Monsoon, so that all of those sparks that you saw from the underside was because Valkyrie was just hitting the hard ox plates on the bottom instead of
milling. It was milling them.
It was.
Yeah.
If we didn't have those plates in place, the lids would have immediately come off, and he would have clipped the batteries almost immediately. And yeah, for this fight, the plan was, we've got this little wedgelet. We've probably only got 1 or 2 hits before it could all go horribly wrong. So my plan for that fight, maybe it was the wrong plan, was to basically spin up all the way, but it would let them spin up all the way as well, because we need like 10 seconds. So I would avoid them for 10 seconds, spin up and go on head on into their weapon. However, you can probably see in the fight, there's a moment where I'm going into a corner and the robot just stops. That's because I completely lost radio signal for no reason. And that's when they came in and delivered the first hit. No, I think a few people were having radio issues that year, but the first corner I'm going around, I'm moving completely fine. It just stops, and I'm there just like desperately trying to move. But by then they'd already come in, clipped the weapon, broken the weapon bearings, and it wasn't spinning anymore. So yeah, the rest of the fight was just drive, survive. Valkyrie at that point had a bit of a history of going up in smoke. So I guess at that point I was hoping that they might have some issues. But again, I think Rory next to me was screaming, "It's our third fight. This is probably it. Just keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop." Yeah. So I just kept going for 3 minutes. Great fight for Valkyrie. Great TV, but not so great for us.
yeah. The result was not great in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other fight that I want to talk about for a number of reasons, because a lot of fans lately I've seen have been bringing up, why doesn't BattleBots do a tag team match? Why, all of these things, and I'm like, well, they have actually. So you got to do a tag team match, which was Monsoon and Ragnarok versus Mad Catter and Kronos, which you won. That was a birthday match. The robot was all decorated in birthday gear. Mad Catter ended up in multiple parts that were still driving independently of each other. It was just like, it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. After like the season that we both had, being able to finish on a high was great. It was great fun.
Just before that fight, wasn't it? It was, I'd had a real, as you can tell, I had a really tough time. A robot, which is essentially the same as what me and Jason did in China, which we got third with, came and it just didn't work. We had radio issues, we had motor issues, we had so many things go wrong. It was a really difficult time.
You had big problems with batteries.
Everything, like even the batteries we used, they were the same brand but different range of that brand, and like the tags inside weren't big enough to handle the current it can actually output. It was just like, if anything could go wrong, it would. It was awful. And Tom, because of our performance the year before, was put against like the hardest lineup of anyone there. Like, that's not an exaggeration. You look at the lineup Tom had.
Like, I remember we had
easily the hardest.
The 3 fights we had: Valkyrie, Hypershock,
or Ragnarok.
Ragnarok, then Valkyrie. We lost to Valkyrie. Then we had
Ragnarok, Hypershock, Valkyrie, Bite Force. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and
after
the lineup's
crazy. We'd all gone back after the Hypershock fight, and it was literally, I think it was later that day that we found out we were fighting Bite Force. And I remember
after Valkyrie,
and I remember Tom saying like, "Oh, I got the email." I was like, "Who is it?" And it was like, "It's Bite Force." I was like, "No, it's not." You pulling my leg.
It's not.
He was like, "It's Bite Force." And I'm like, "Let me read it." I was like, so he put it in the group chat, and Rory was like, "No, it's not. Who is it really?" And he was like, "No, it's Bite Force." And they're like, send him the screenshot of the email as well. And
we had a fun time that year.
So it was difficult leading up to on it. So like obviously Tweedy, he had his priorities elsewhere. shall we say. And the other two members of the team were both tired and not really doing much. It was a lot of my shoulders to get done. And I went in just before you, and I can't even remember who I fought, but obviously I lost. And then you went in against Byforce, and I didn't even wait for my robot to leave. I didn't go with it. I sort of stayed there, didn't I, before you Byforce won. I gave you a Monsoon raw just before the fight, because I was like, come on, Tom, you got to do this. And then I was broken at that point. You came out, obviously having to then fight the champ after having a really tough run, apart from me. And we both sort of sat under the tent where they let the robots cool off when you take the batteries out for safety. And we were just like, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, it was a lot better last time when we were together, and we were just exhausted. And it was just sort of that mutual, like, we should just do it together again. I think, it was that conversation where, like, it sort of realized that we're not going to get anywhere in this tournament. And it's not the winning that matters. It was the fact that it was all the effort didn't really come to much for either of us. Like, Tom, you did some really memorable fights, but I think we both just felt like, what's the point in this? Like, we just wanted to have fun like we did before. Yeah. And so we basically told Jax and Greg that we were going to do a tag team if they were offering one. Which was great fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Ragnarok was present for it and maybe got like 2 hits in, one of which was on Monsoon, and that was David trying to get Tom. But it was great. It was so much fun. And we just decided to have fun, rather than let the stress of it and the effort and all the other absolute genuine bollocks that was going on around us to affect us. We just wanted to have fun.
Yeah, and we did. Yeah.
It definitely came across that way. I mean, I thought it was great. Now the sad thing obviously was the next season. I understand that you were supposed to be a part of that season.
Oh boy.
But then the COVID stuff happened.
2020 we were accepted.
So rewinding, take us back to 2020.
2020 we were accepted. We had the original filming date.
So for 2020, brand new robot, far smaller, all brushless. What else? Both pods pivot independently. It's a completely different machine. In theory,
weapon goes both ways.
The weapon goes both ways, as it always has, Tim.
Always has.
It's never been on a
definitely. That dual direction contact that we had.
Definitely, definitely. 2020. So we were accepted to 2020 with the robot, which in hindsight has been upgraded a lot since, but maybe another time. 2020. We found out pretty soon.
Yeah, because the UK went into lockdown in like early March.
Yeah. So before we had shipped, before we booked flights, we knew
that first lockdown, we were ready to rock and roll, weren't we? We looked at like travel insurance and everything. We were.
Yeah. I don't think we'd booked flights yet.
No,
we hadn't got to that point yet.
I think we were literally going to do that the next week because I was going to come up to yours to do it.
Yeah.
And for 2020, before BattleBots made the decision, we decided to pull out, as did all of the other teams that were going. And that was kind of that. We decided that we couldn't fly, and then we couldn't, so it didn't matter. And then throughout 2020, I mean, what's happened in terms of life?
In that regard, we were fortunate, so we didn't have any money wasted or anything. Or, some teams had already booked flights.
Yeah. It was a rough one. But I think the next year was far rougher. I would say.
So 2021.
2021.
The crate one, but we didn't.
Yeah. So during 2021, essentially, there were 2 ways for international teams to get into the US. One way is to quarantine in a third-party country for 2 weeks and then travel into America. And I believe that's what the Brazilian teams did that year. So they spent 2 weeks in Mexico and then flew into America, and it was totally fine. However, for us, that would involve taking 2 more weeks off work, 2 more weeks away from life, and we'd have to do it in another country, and it just wouldn't work. So
I wouldn't have been allowed to leave, because at the time I was working at a military contractor, and we had a really important contract for someone I can't name, but I couldn't take a month out. So I had to pull out. But I had to pull out before you guys even got to the next stage.
Yeah, it was
yeah, I
really
was most of the way through my PhD, and at this point they were letting us back in the labs, so I was allowed to do lab work again, and I was like, taking 2 weeks away from doing lab work is already a big commitment. I can't take 4 weeks away from doing lab work.
Yeah. So the other method of getting into the US during COVID times was with something called an NIE exemption, and that's National Interest Exemption Form. And essentially, it's a type of visa waiver that you can get very quickly. And I guess it was reserved for musicians and actors, I guess. Basically, people that can be qualified as people that are, I don't know, of interest to America in some way. And BattleBots' travel coordinator told us that this can be done. It's the way that everyone's doing it. So BattleBots on our behalf put in our applications, and they should have all gone through okay. But the closer and closer it got to actually flying, the more worried we all got.
Because none of us had heard anything.
None of us had heard anything. We weren't accepted or declined, just hadn't heard anything. So we shipped the robot in the crate. We booked our flights. And then the day before our flights, we drove down to my parents' house with our suitcases ready to fly the next day. And then the next day came round and we still hadn't heard anything. So at this point, we were getting a bit worried. And I think, had we already moved our flights at that point? I think we cancelled them knowing that we could possibly rebook next week, because we had already spoken to Greg and said, okay, look, it's Saturday. We don't know if we're going to fly. What's the latest we can fly that and still get our 3 flights in?
Wednesday.
And it was Wednesday.
Yeah, so we had been, because there was still like restricted flights with COVID, that week on the Wednesday, we had been emailed to say that our return flight had been cancelled. And at that point, the airlines were saying, if we cancel your flight, you're eligible for a free refund. So we didn't rebook our flights.
We cancelled them, but we were able to rebook
them. And claimed the refund on the intention that if this visa did appear, we'd just rebook on the day. Rather than rebooking and potentially losing the money, because it wasn't something that we wanted to do.
And then Saturday evening, myself, Sarah and Rory were down at the local pub around my parents' house. We just sat down for a couple of drinks.
You got the email.
Oh, and I got an email from Greg saying,
it's a no.
I'm so sorry. We've just been told you've been declined. And
several of the other teams got a similar message, and some of us didn't even.
And I know that you know there are worse things to happen, but like that was one of the worst. One of the worst moments I've ever had. Like, you know.
So at this point as well, like we'd even done like a couple of Zoom interviews with like production and
we were
Chris and Kenny, and
we were completely ready, and the amount of effort that had gone into this machine, and for it to
3 years.
3
years.
Yeah, like it's insane. It's completely insane, and for us to have to wait a year to get to that point, and then know the day of our flight that it's not going to happen. It just completely destroyed me, to be honest. And knowing that our crate was sitting there, you know. So we had our drinks, we collapsed, definitely a few tears.
And then we booked a last minute holiday.
And then on another topic, me and Sarah booked a last minute holiday to Fuerteventura, and had quite a nice time, didn't we?
Yeah.
We had quite a lovely time. What did we do? Oh, we had a great time. Yeah. So our crate was sitting there, ready to go, but we couldn't fly to be there with our crate. And that was that.
that is very, very terrible. Now, you know, that happened last year. What is going on for 2022 that we can talk about?
What's going on? What's going on?
We've had friends that have been over to the US, both to see family and friends. So and with COVID now, we know that there's not going to be any restrictions, so that's not a concern. And we've all got like our booster jabs and everything, so we know that there won't be any issues with that. That as soon as BattleBots say this is the date.
Well, I was going to say at this point the dates have been made public.
They have, whether it's like low key. BattleBots tweeted it out, and I'm like, oh.
yeah. So hypothetically, if we're going, hypothetically, we can make the dates and we can fly.
Yeah.
And we will fly. Hypothetically, if we're going. Yeah. And assuming we do go, it's going to be a pretty great time. We've got the team back together, the robot back together. It's just, it's going to be an emotional one, I think, going back. I think.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, they like the continuity of it, you know, us coming back together as a team.
Yeah.
And it's been unfortunate, obviously, with COVID, and my work has increased significantly in the last year. I haven't been able to go up because it's about 3.5 hour drive to Tom's. That's what it's built. So I haven't been able to go as much. But like at the start, when we were going to go for the last time, I was there, and I've been through as many as I can do up there. But Tom and Rory have already done the mammoth share of it, that's for sure. But the next couple of weekends and stuff, I'm coming up just to do some extras. And we were just like, as a team, we've all sort of grown. I think we've all got more adult stuff going on in our lives. Like, you know, we're at a point then where none of us really had too many responsibilities in the first time. So we were just like, oh, this is great, whatever, we'll wing it, blah, blah, blah. And now sort of we've had to balance that with life. Like, you know, so, you know, Tom and Sarah, they've settled, they've got their own place, you know, they've got themselves to a point where, you know, they're adulting.
Our own house.
I've got myself to a point where I'm not just moving every 6 months and not knowing who I am or where I am. You know, I'm settled.
What you've got.
I've got a cat now. Yeah. We've got an absolute gem of another half, you know, so she's great. And for the first time in all of our lives, all 6 of us, we're settled. And for us to go and do this together, for me, it means a hell of a lot, because obviously with all that went on, Tom was just sort of welcome me back with open arms, because we've always been mates, and to bring out the idiot in both of us. It's quite nice. Lots of fart noises and stupid things, and
doing that
so like we've really come to a nice point for us where we're not doing it to prove anything. We're not doing it to necessarily win. We're doing it because it's what we love to do, and we're doing it because we love to do it as a team, and that's just how it feels. It just feels natural. So it's a really nice place for me, at least. I think that's sort of shared between all of us.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I think to build on that as well, the fact that we've not been for like 3 years is also quite nice, because it's almost like we're getting a bit of a fresh start on it, you know? Like that feeling that we had in 2018 when no one really knew us, no one knew what to expect. Going back now, a few years after the debacle that we both had, 3.5 years. Hypothetically, if we go back.
Hypothetically.
Assuming we go back, it's almost like a bit of a fresh start. There are people that will be watching us, you know, that won't have seen necessarily what happened to us last time, and they're going to get to see us being idiots on camera again. It's just it means a lot.
I don't always listen when I'm at the show. You're not really meant to go into the audience. You're not really meant to scream at people.
No, you're not.
Get all hyped up. But I was a bit like, apart from Kelly, there's no one here who's really going to stop me, is there? So, you know, let's go and give. Like we always say this, don't we, Tom? Like both me and you have been in the audience for this sort of thing before we did it. Like the idea of reaching out and making somebody want to get into engineering, or making someone feel like they're seen, especially today when like social media is such a big consuming ball for people, especially young people. It's nice that we can bring that sort of personal level, because I think there's a lot of teams where they try and show a bit like the show business side, not necessarily honest to how they're feeling.
I think it's too easy to lose. I think it's too easy to forget how ridiculous this whole sport is. I think is what I'm trying to say.
So we'll say if I'm knackered, or like, you know, like when some of the interviews you tell me like, I don't know what happened there, or you know, things like that. It's the honesty side of it, and I think as a team we all do that. I think that is part of being British as well, but it's just that naturalness, and it just feels right again this time. So
Yeah, and speaking of the fact that you've been, out for a couple of years, I always ask this question to everyone that I have on the show, and keeping in mind, I'm pretty sure that some of the BattleBots folks watch this podcast, so you never know. Who, of the robots that are out there now, because there's so many newer robots that have come into the fold, who do you want to fight?
Oh, I mean, everybody.
This is the bit where I shut up because we've got my foot in it.
I mean, should we say what happened this year?
Yeah.
So, okay, so
why did I say that?
Were you allowed to say that? I just why not? So last year we were told that
Tom,
are we allowed to?
So beautifully unsubtle. Are we allowed to say it? Like that's a leading statement.
So basically,
might as well just at this point. You might as well. Can I say that thing I'm not allowed to say? Like, come on, dude. I thought it was going to be me, but that was terrible.
So in 2021, when our crate was down, we couldn't go there. We spoke to Aaron over Facebook. Who were we going to have fought if we had?
He does all the matchups.
Because at this point we knew the first two people that we might have fought. The first one was Slammo, and the second one would have been Icewave. And I remember thinking, oh my god, I want to fight both of them. They sound great.
Yeah.
They sound great. So this year I'm very keen to fight. Well, I guess Craig would be great. He'd just be so much fun.
Oh, we love Craig. I miss him so much.
Yeah. I think if we did get to fight Slammo and Craig, it would just be the most fun fight possible because we're all.
He would match the energy. Like I know Craig really well.
He would. We're already.
We'd probably end up wrestling.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd love to fight Slammo, or just whatever, or Craig and whatever he's got. Just that team is what I want to fight. And then I'd like to fight a horizontal. To be honest, I would quite like one. I think I'd like to almost prove that we can take on a spinner and maybe, hopefully, do okay.
As much as I like him, there is one that I think we could take, but.
I think I know who it is.
It's not arrogance at all, but like,
is it?
Monsoon's definitely evolved since our first time there. Like Rory and Tom, who spent the hours, and I've sort of like gone, yeah, that looks good. I'll do some wiring now. Like, so they've definitely spent the time and the hours, and it's evolved to the point where I think some of the old methods on how things were done are now a little bit outdated. So like when me and Tom just started doing Robot Wars, for example, everyone was running Bosch 750 motors for drive. And that time has passed. There's maybe one or two people doing that. And it does evolve. Like you can't use necessarily older tech anymore. It has to, and there is still one or two more dinosaurs that are just legends, and they are starting to show signs of not being as scary. And one of them, not because we don't like him, he's a great guy, but I would love to fight Tombstone. I'd like it would be a great fight. Like it's not that definitely not first fight, obviously, because a T-Rex is still going to take a chunk out of you. But
that would be nasty.
It's like it would be nice to prove that the time and the effort makes it something that's feared, but not show off. It's just
and I mean,
does that make sense? It sounds like waffle.
Yeah, but I think also without giving anything away, the robot was built in 2020, but it's not sat in a box since 2020.
Oh, not at all. No.
We rebuilt it and redesigned parts and extra attachments for 2021, and we did the same for 2022. So
and we try and run it.
We ran some of those new setups at Extreme Robot Portsmouth.
Won every fight.
We won every fight against two horizontals. That was good.
Oh, that was a tough day. That was because I was off to Romania the next day, and like it was the first time we were properly all together. And when we started this build, I personally wasn't again. But it's always me in relationships. It's when we started this build, was in another bad place. For various reasons, and I was like living somewhere I was not used to. I was in Kent. I was there for a year. I hated it, and it was the point that we were all back together as a team and we were really involved with it. And it just like Tom knows I'm not someone to ever shed a tear or anything, or like, I just couldn't help it. I was just like, what the fuck is this? Is this emotions? Is this what emotions are? Like, is this? I can feel too much. Like, it was
first
really.
Fight at Portsmouth was the first time that we all fought together as a team, and that was definitely a big.
And like, I just said to the producers there, I was like, I'm going out into the crowd to do Monsoon. I said to Tommy, "You all right with me doing that?" He's like, "Yeah, that's what you're here for." Oh, yeah, okay. So like, yeah, just went out and we did it. It was like the old times, and then we absolutely beat the shit out of the other guy. And it was like, yeah, this is like old times.
It was so good. It was so good. That's the vibe that I definitly want.
And it was just like it felt like we'd all grown up a bit and progressed, and it was actually quite. Don't know why. Still a bit confused as to why, but it was quite an emotional day. Like it was like, oh my God. Yeah.
I'm also curious because I'm sure that you've caught, you know, at least some of it, but the new Sin City Slugfest, you know, the Golden Bolt, all of this tournament stuff. You know, have you watched what has been out so far, and what have you thought? I mean, for me, this has been some of the best BattleBox content that I've seen in a while, and just like some crazy runs, you know, like what Hypershock did, what Glitch did. I mean, just insane stuff. You know, what's your take on all of that?
I think it's incredible. I think some of the best fights that BattleBots has ever seen has taken place during the Sin City Slugfest tournament. It's incredible, and what Glitch have done is just amazing as well. I think it's a brutal robot. If they can sort out their movement issues, they will go far, and they have already gone far. You know, I think what the nice thing about the format is that because everyone only has essentially one fight and you're out, everyone just really goes for it, and no one leaves anything behind.
That's the Robot Wars style, isn't it? You know?
It is. I was thinking that it's very much like the Robot Wars Heat style, where you know you may lose one fight and go out, so make it a good one.
Yeah.
And you got robots being completely torn apart. Like Mad Catter got destroyed. There's just been some amazing ones, and
it's
the
a
fight
show,
between,
isn't it?
Yeah, the fight between like Huge and Deep Six was incredible, and it was a really, really great season. Some of the best fights I've ever had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really hope that they keep that format. I mean, it's similar to Bounty Hunters, but obviously it's different because it has that extra tournament at the end. So I really hope that they keep with it, because I think it's really cool. And
it's great. Like Hypershock for years, everyone who's ever seen Hypershock is like, Will has built such beautiful robots. Everyone says they're great. You can see they're great. On paper, they're great. He just has the worst luck. So in this last lot, it's really nice to see for him, because we all know what it can do and what it should do. It doing that, like it's just really like, it's like because you know how that feels when it goes wrong, and so for it finally going right for such a real piece of furniture at BattleBots, it wouldn't be quite the same without them. It was just lovely to see. Like, it's just sick. It just makes sense. It's doing what it's meant to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of really exciting things to come, you know, for BattleBots and for Monsoon, hopefully. Hypothetically.
Of course. Yeah. No, we'll see what the future holds, but we're very excited. We've been working on this robot for a very long time, and we're going to be very thrilled to finally show off what it can do at full chat on the show. Hypothetically. Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to have had you all on to talk about Monsoon. You know, super excited for whatever the next step is. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And for everybody that's, you know, watching, please, you know, continue to give me feedback, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I'm going to keep doing shows like this. So we will definitely see you next time on the show. Great. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.